Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, as regular listeners will know, after winning a LinkedIn Top Voice Award way back in 2015 for tech writing, I left my corporate IT role behind to set up my own business, where I now help businesses and professionals ghostwrite thought leadership blogs, manage their business blogs, or even help them launch their own podcast. And without technology, I'd still be sat in that office with no windows doing a 2-hour round-trip commute every day. But technology changed all that. And all I need now to live and manage my life is a microphone, laptop, and be completely location independent. But I look around and I see more and more people leaving that day job behind and start their own business. And everywhere in the world, people are seeing that it's never been easier to set up their own business and serve the global community. But what happens when the time comes to walk away? How would you sell your business or your life's work? Especially when your business serves an international audience, so will appeal to international buyers too. Well, this is where I recently discovered a company called Flippa, which is the #1 marketplace globally to buy and sell websites and online businesses. And they're growing at a phenomenal rate. And the digital sector represents the changing face of small business. And there's so much more opportunity than ever before to start, run, grow, and with Flippa, exit or acquire. So I absolutely love this story, and today's guest helped me see things from a much broader perspective, and I hope you enjoy this one as much as I did. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Melbourne, Australia, so we can speak with Blake Hutchison from Flippa. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Blake. Can you tell the listeners a little more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Appreciate the opportunity to have a discussion. I'm Blake Hutchison. I'm the CEO of Flippa. Flippa is a worldwide marketplace to buy and sell online businesses.
Now, the tagline at Flippa is where businesses are bought and sold. But can you set the scene and tell everyone listening a little bit more about exactly what Flippa is and how you're using technology over there? It's amazing.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. It's first and foremost, it is about online businesses, so digital assets, websites, and then within the online business environment, you see e-commerce businesses, advertising businesses, SaaS, so software as a service, marketplace businesses, and the list goes on. So as long as it's a digital asset, you can sell that on Flippa. Flippa is a 10-year-old business, and it's a true marketplace. It's a tech platform enabling people to find access to buyers, connect with those buyers, enabling buyers to negotiate with sellers, ultimately agree on a price, and then finally go through a transaction. So that is the creation of an asset register, the exchange of those assets, and then a very simple to use payment service. It's an escrow product, which enables the safe and secure exchange of funds. So it's all encompassing, and we see around 4,500 listings go live each month, and we see about that number, probably a little bit more, new buyers register each month. So in July this year, we saw 5,500 new buyers register their interest. And ultimately, it's about those two parties connecting with each other and finding a way to exchange in what is a really burgeoning alternative asset class.
That's a phenomenal figure there, 5,000 listings a month or 4,500 listings a month. And when I delved a little bit deeper and was doing a little bit of research, trying to find some data about the kind of work that you're doing there, I quickly learned, I think your buyer base is growing that fast with over 280,000 registered buyers and is growing by over 5,000 every month. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because it's fantastic.
Yeah, so our biggest market is the US, second biggest market is the UK, and actually we've got a really, really fast-growing long tail. So what I mean by that is there's some really, really fast-growth digital economies. So certainly Southeast Asia is an example of that. So we're seeing a number of listings come out of that market as we are buyers. And so buyers are setting up preferences. And those preferences give us some insight into what they're looking for, obviously the business model. As I mentioned, things like e-commerce storefronts, either new or very much established and with very successful trading history, and doing that across, as I said, those lots of business models. I guess the reason is that websites compared to other investment or asset classes currently undervalued. And so smart, savvy investors who have typically some subject matter expertise are looking to acquire things which they can drive, frankly, an ROI, so return on investment of. And so we see really three types of buyers. You've got the person who is essentially the owner or operator of a business today, and they're looking to bolt on something new to add additional value to their existing business offering. You've got the kind of side hustle. So the person who is looking to just acquire something on the side, perhaps a passive income stream to supplement their existing revenue or income from elsewhere. And then you've got the one that I call the boss, which is people who are literally acquiring their next job. So we've got countless stories of people who are escaping the cubicle at work, finding something to acquire. As I said, they've probably got some subject matter expertise in sales, in marketing, in engineering, or something like that, and they're looking to acquire something to literally change careers. It's a career change.
It's amazing, it really is. And for a lot of people tuning in and hearing about you guys for the first time and maybe not even knowing that this was a concept that was, or a service that was available out there, and they could be thinking, the site looks great, you're enjoying great success, it's a great idea. But one question that they may come to straight away is, but why are they selling and why are people buying? Is there any insights you can share around that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And it's certainly a common question that we get from our first-time buyer base. And there's multiple reasons as to why I might want to sell my website or my business. So the first is that it's actually what I do. So I am a consummate professional. I am building websites to essentially flip. And so these are people who have got a reputation for being able to build something that is sustainable, has some basic level traction, and is able to be acquired by a first-time buyer because they want a bit of a leg up with respect to the beginnings of their digital ambitions. So that is one type of seller, and that's why they sell. That's exactly what they do. The second type is really someone who has run a business full time, and like anyone, there is a point in time where they want to find a path to an exit. And it's not that the business is doing poorly. It's not necessarily that the business is doing wonderfully well. It's quite simply that they have been doing it long enough, like many of us find in our careers, that we want to change. And so we find that often the most common reason is quite simply, I've been running my business for 3.5 years, I've been running my business for 5 years, whatever the number might be, and I quite simply want a liquidity event. I want to realise some of the value that I've created over a period of time, and I'm looking to find an exit. There are a couple of other reasons. Certainly you get some cases of where quite simply the business does run out of runway. And so that can mean one of two things. Either I'm literally out of cash and I'm going to sell my business to someone who can think of something better to do with it. The other case is where the person runs out of runway from a subject matter expertise standpoint. So we often see developers, engineers, really, really tech-savvy types build great businesses that have traction, but when it comes to taking it to the next step, they don't necessarily have the sales and marketing skill set to take it to the next step. And so sometimes that's a reason why they're selling. They're selling because they believe somebody else can actually take it over and perhaps take it to the next level.
And I also believe that Flippa was co-founded by the founders of 99 Designs and SitePoint. So I've got to ask, can you tell me more about the story behind Flippa and how you got where you are today?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, it's a really, really interesting and fun story, and I suppose it just shows you what might come out of a business. So That's right. The founders, Mark and Matt, they created a business called SitePoint. That business, if my memory serves me correctly, was founded over 15 years ago. And so on that platform, which was essentially a developer community, and over time it's, I guess, become more of a learning environment for developers and engineers. It had two alternative forums. One of those forums was a design forum, and one of those forums was a trading forum. Now, the design forum was spun out and became 99 Designs. And so that's right, they are the founders of 99 Designs. That's a successful business in its own right. It's completely independent of both SitePoint and Flippa, and it's run out of Melbourne with a very large and significant satellite office in Oakland, California. And a bit like Flippa, it's been global from day one and has a very, very large following, although, of course, it's design-centric. Flippa, on the other hand, was spun out a couple of years later, so it's not quite as old as 99 Designs, but similar story. There was an organic and natural orientation to this trading environment, and the founders quite simply recognised an opportunity and spun it out accordingly.
Before I was talking to you today, I visited your website and I quickly discovered how varied your customers actually are, with websites and online businesses selling for as little as $500 and equally as high as $5 million. So just to help everybody listening kind of visualise how it all works, can you walk me through that process and how to get the most out of the platform? Yeah,
it's a really good question, because I think the key thing that we want to make clear to everyone is that Flippa is a platform and it's a marketplace. So Flippa is not a broker. Yeah. And of course, there are great brokers around the world. In fact, we recommend many and we endorse many. They are typically dealing with higher value assets, and they're typically providing a more handheld white glove service. Flippa, on the other hand, is operating at scale. And so what that means is that we can service assets as low as $500 all the way through to assets as high as $5 million, as you said. And so what happens is we are very, very big advocates and proponents for marketplace dynamics. So what that really means is that we're enabling our buyer base to find and then watch listings so that they can get a true read on how the rest of the buyer base orientates to those listings and ultimately the popularity of those listings. So what happens, in short, is a listing is obviously owned by a seller, and that seller is could be from anywhere in the world, and they pay a very small listing fee to get access to the marketplace. And once they've listed, the marketplace flywheel effect starts to do its thing. And so buyers are introduced to listings based on preferences that they set either when they register or preferences that are set through their search behaviour. So if I search for an e-commerce business that is 2 years old with monthly net profit of between $2,500 and $5,000 in revenue, then I can then save that search. Now, what that means is that for every single listing that lists post me saving that search criteria, I will be notified. And so over time, we've been able to develop this monster repository of saved search data. And as a result, we can introduce things at speed to buyers and obviously ensure that sellers see as many buyers as possible. And so that creates a competitive marketplace. And what it does is ultimately, for good quality listings, it enables them to be shown to the right people and drive a price point up and above what they might be able to get elsewhere, simply as a result of demand. And so the marketplace kind of plays out in that way.
And a lot of people listening are thinking, this is great, but how are you guys actually making money? And especially if you're selling businesses from anywhere between $500 and $5 million. So what's your pricing structure? How's that work?
Yeah, so we make the most of our money through what we call success fees. And so the key thing is the cream rises to the top. So Flippa makes its money when good quality listings sell, and that's a variable fee. So buyers do not pay Flippa, sellers pay Flippa. Sellers pay Flippa when they sell their asset and or business. And as I said, that's variable. So anything between zero and $500,000, Flippa will take 10%. Between $500,000 and $1 million, Flippa will take 7.5%, and over $1 million, Flippa will take 5%.
Excellent. And what kind of feedback have you received from your community, both buyers and sellers? Do you get to hear that?
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting question, because one of the things that we're working on is humanising the Flippa experience. And what we really mean by that is, I guess, twofold. One, providing a frictionless listing service where you can get access to a whole heap of data integrations so that you can provide instant access to buyers from the perspective of verification. So with cloud accounting now, you've got businesses like Xero, which no doubt you're familiar with, Neil, and QuickBooks Online and those types of businesses. We can actually plug into cloud accounting software and give buyers access to the data. In addition to that, payment services like Stripe and Braintree and platforms like Shopify and BigCommerce and business models and affiliate revenue streams like the Amazon Associates program or even AdSense. And so we've got the ability to provide frictionless listing environment and then data verification for buyers. And so over time, that type of service, and we're going to continue that trajectory, has given us better quality listings. And so that's the first piece. So we're starting to hear really, really positive feedback from our buyer community around the quality of listings that they are seeing. The second piece is that obviously selling a business or your website, and particularly if you've been running it for a period of time, it's actually quite an emotional decision to sell. And it's an emotional decision ultimately to first list on the platform. So we hear incredible stories of people very, very thankful to Flippa for, one, connecting with them, a buyer, but then ultimately finding them a sale. And so that can change lives in some cases. And so we've got this fantastic story right now out of Indonesia where a e-commerce owner, he'd owned his business for 3.5 years. That business is sold on Flippa for $75,000 and USD, that is. And he is absolutely over the moon. So with the digital economy, the changing face of small business, you've got these extraordinary stories of it literally being a life-changing event for people who find a seller, or a buyer, I should say, for their business. On the buy side, we've got wonderful stories of people, as I said, literally leaving their careers, acquiring their next job, and then going on to have success through the acquisition of additional and multiple websites. So the feedback we get and the gratitude we have from those people is absolutely fantastic. We've got a young lady in Chicago who literally sent us this note only last week stating that she was forever grateful to Flippa for being the catalyst that helped her transition from ultimately being chained to a cubicle in a corporate to now living her dream, living in an apartment living in an apartment and getting access to Lake Michigan and Chicago each morning without the burden of going into work each day. So that stuff is pretty exciting to hear.
Oh, it really is. That puts a real heart into the company. I'm curious, are there any, so we say, savvy businessmen are frequenting the platform, they're trying to hoover up bargain companies? Do you see any of that going on as well?
Yeah, that's a funny thing. We've actually got a number of buyers who are kind of begging us to give them first access to good deals. But actually, it's not like that. The way the marketplace works is it's very much a democracy. So, you get prolific buyers, and they're often looking to create a portfolio of assets. And that works particularly in the e-commerce and advertising spaces. So you'll get publishers, smaller publishers, I'm not talking multinationals, but smaller publishers who are looking to roll up 10, 15 different websites in certain verticals. And similarly, people who will say, well, look, I'm looking for unique e-commerce businesses. I've got an established warehouse in a certain location. We've got excess capacity, and we're looking for something to supplement our existing e-commerce platforms. And so, yeah, you do have those prolific buyers, and obviously we love to see those guys.
And are you noticing any other trends in your industry as well? And is there anything that particularly stands out or excites you about this space at the moment?
Well, I think it's really just the maturity of the digital economy. So I think that, most people still perceive the small business economy to be that of a brick and mortar store that we might see on a high street. But in reality, there is genuinely a small business economy that is changing daily. And in fact, there's more small businesses in the apartments that we see above these traditional retail stores than there is on high street alone. And so really it's not necessarily a change in what Flippa is seeing, because we've kind of been before the times to some extent, but it's a change in the way that the community perceives the small business economy as a whole. What we've seen is 6 consecutive months of listings growth. And in addition to that, the average sale value of a business on Flippa is also increasing. So I think that that's probably the trend, that as the digital economy matures, we're going to see higher and higher quality listings.
Fantastic. Well, a huge thank you for coming on and joining me today. If I do let you go, is there any way you can point the listeners in the direction of where to find you online? And also, if they're left with any other questions they'd like to speak with your team about, what's the best way of doing that?
Yeah, absolutely, Neil. I'm really keen to hear feedback from your listeners, but in general, Flippa customers, whenever they have it, frankly. So I can be reached at Blake@Flippa, that's BLAKE, at Flippa, FLIPPA.com, or alternatively, people can look me up on LinkedIn at Blake Hutchison. And then finally, the team at Flippa is available at support@flippa.com.
Well, I always say at the end of every episode that technology works best when it brings people together. And I can't thank you enough for highlighting how technology has almost created this small business economy. And for example, I mean, we've been introduced by somebody in New York City. You're in Australia. I'm here in the UK. And you're helping people all over the world buy and sell their businesses. It's not until you actually sit down and think about just that statement alone, you realise how far we've come and how technology has just torn down geographical borders over the years. So a big thank you for coming on and sharing that with me today.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. I really appreciate your time, and thanks for letting us talk a little bit about Flippa.
Kudos to Blake for joining me today. Like I said, we had an introduction from a guy in New York. Blake is in Australia. I'm here in the UK, and it was 11 p.m. Australia time that Blake agreed to speak with me and record this episode today. And he also had a 5 a.m. get-up time too. So he's a completely great guy. And if you do have any questions, please get in touch with him, because I know he'd love to help. And the conversation with him today really made me think about how we're seeing more and more people walk away from their day jobs and start their own business. But we're also seeing people leave behind the daily grind and start their own business too. And some possibly get made redundant and want to invest their redundancy package into a new opportunity. But while all this is going on right here, right now, what happens in a few years when they want to walk away, when they want to retire? And Blake shared some fantastic stories there of people that felt that their life had been transformed by having this service available. Because it seems that we're in uncharted territory, and how businesses run, how businesses are bought and sold are completely different to our old analogue days. So I love how Flippa are meeting that new need from a global community of business owners. So please check them out. Let me know your thoughts. I really am fascinated by how easy it has become. I really am fascinated by how easy it's become to serve the global community with your own business. And if it's something that you've done and you want to share your journey, or if you've just got a question for me, remember, you can email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter @NeilCHughes, and my website for everything else is techblogwriter.co.uk. In a couple of days, I've got Citrix and NVIDIA in an interview. It's something that I'm really looking forward to. So we can actually hear how these two tech giants are actually working together to solve problems for businesses. But I don't want to reveal too much on that, but that's in the next couple of days. But I'm afraid we're at the end of this podcast. So a big thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.